Hey everyone, and welcome back to Hoosier Homes and Hustles. I'm Jessica Williams, here with my co-host Stacy Preston, and we're both realtors with eXp Realty. Today we're going to talk about something we think you might be able to relate to, and that is our biggest mistake when we first got started in real estate investing.
That's right. We've had our fair share of mistakes, and we're going to be real honest today to help you avoid making the same mistakes that we've made. So let's get right into it, Jessica. Why don't you kick us off?
All right, sure. So my biggest mistake was not utilizing a dynamic pricing tool when we started operating our very first short-term rental, which just happened to be in Indianapolis. I thought, this is one property, sounds manageable, right?
Right.
Until it's not.
Definitely sounds like it.
So for us, we had a 3-month window on our Airbnb calendar. So the moment our 3-month calendar opened up, we had an initial booking. And at this time, we'd only been operating the short-term rental for maybe about 3 months. So we were relatively new. And so we figured, we were really excited, but what is going on that weekend that these people booked? Because this was also before we started asking folks, what brings you to the city? What are you doing here? Kind of thing. So we go out there and we find out that it happens to be the 2022 College National Football Championship or something. I mean, I don't know sports.
Right. You mean you don't have the sports calendar memorized for Indianapolis?
Definitely not. Shocking, I know. But
yeah.
No.
So that's a big event and a huge missed opportunity.
Yeah. I mean, it felt like a gut punch.
Right.
The guests actually ended up paying for their entire stay what we could have charged for it in one nightly rate.
Wow.
And so after that, we realized we definitely had to change our approach.
So what did you decide to do?
Well, we actually started implementing a dynamic pricing tool called PriceLabs. Actually, we used your referral link.
Yeah, I told you so.
So also, we'll tell you guys, if you need one and you're not using a dynamic pricing tool, please get one. And if you'd like to save money off your subscription, we'll drop our referral link down in the show notes.
So what does PriceLabs do?
So it takes into account all the local events, seasonal trends, market trends, and then it'll price your property appropriately for the average nightly rate.
So no more underpricing the sporting events you have no idea that are going on in your backyard. That's such a great tip. Dynamic pricing tools are a game changer for anyone in short-term rentals. It really does save a lot of time and money trying to figure out when demand is high. So I implemented it about a year into short-term rentals, and I agree with everything that you said. Pricing just one weekend correctly could pay for an entire year of the software. I know you're frugal, so that was why you were holding off, right?
Exactly. I figured I wanted to save the money. I could do this myself. And then when it really bit us in the end, I was like, this, like you said, it completely pays for itself. Right. So I might as well utilize it.
Definitely. So I often hear investors say that the pricing tools that are built into Airbnb and VRBO are what they're using. And I'll caution you against that because those platforms just want to sell nights. They don't care if they're maximizing income. They want nights sold. That can come with lower rates and potentially guests that you don't want to host. So
glad you highlighted that.
Yeah. Personally, I'm okay with a little bit higher price and lower occupancy. It's less wear and tear on the property, and hopefully I'm getting better guests that way.
Absolutely. Learned our lesson with that once too, by reducing our nightly rate too low. Mm-hmm. And that was another lesson learned as well. Stacy, now it's your turn for the hot seat. What was your biggest mistake when you first got started in real estate investing?
Well, when we were initially planning for this show, I didn't have one thing that just stood out. So
because you did everything perfect out of the gate.
I'm perfect, right? So I decided to go back and look at some of the properties that we passed on initially that for whatever reason we thought we shouldn't buy this property. And have you ever done that? Have you ever gone back and looked and see?
I think I've gone back, not from an investing standpoint, but just from a personal primary residence standpoint.
Yeah. And to see what they're worth now, it's crazy. So I decided to do that for this show. So when my husband and I were looking for our first investment, we were looking for a long-term rental, and we were kind of focused in Hendricks County, Indiana. And we got a house under contract. The listing price was $140,000, and we got it under contract for $130,000. And at first glance, it looked great. It had been flipped recently, so everything was fresh and new, and it looked like it'd be a great, nice rental for someone. So we had our inspection, and I'll say this was before I was a realtor, so my comfort level with inspection findings was not where it is now. So we get there for the inspection, and the first thing that the inspector tells us is, I can't go to the crawl space today. It's flooded. And I'm just kind of like, okay, we're done here. I wasn't really even interested after he said that. Then he also found a few other things, some electrical issues. The home didn't have appliances, which is pretty common on a flip. Sometimes they don't put those in. So that was an expense I knew we were going to have to put into it. But when these other things started adding up, I just kind of shut down. Like, I am not interested in this home anymore. So my agent, who was also an investor, told me, she's like, I really don't think these are big things. Like, in the grand scheme of things, like, this stuff doesn't scare me. But she was like, I understand if you're not comfortable and you want to.
Because things can be fixed. You can
Right.
negotiate price or
Exactly. I
work
mean,
it in
we
somehow.
could have had the seller address probably most of that stuff. But now, again, I just felt uncomfortable with it. So we moved on and decided to keep looking. So looking back, I spent a few minutes looking at what the history of the property has been since 2018. And here's what I found. So in 2018, the buyer that went in after us got it for 128, so a little bit less than what we were under contract for. Then in 2021, it sold for 199.9. So that's about 70,000 more than what we were going to buy it for. Then in 2022, it sold for 225. So, ouch. Today, it's worth about 240,000, and on top of that, it's on a road where they're doing a road widening project. And I was looking in the history of the property, and the city is going to buy the front yard or part of the front yard for that road expansion. And they paid the neighbors $90,000 for that just recently. This house was on a bigger lot. So I don't really think that would have hurt the value of it too much because it was like a half-acre lot. So you still would have a front yard. So that hurts. That's a lot of extra income that
Absolutely.
we could have gotten on top of the rental income we would have had. On the flip side, I mean, we would have had to come out of pocket potentially 15,000 for some of those repairs. Again, the seller probably would have covered some of it, but looking back at it now, 6, 7 years later, I just am like, wow, what a missed opportunity. And I can't believe that scared us. But, again, when you're new, inspections
Or
scare
the
you.
scariest part of the process generally.
Right. They're terrifying. And, you're just trying to make the right decision. And I just got overwhelmed and completely shut down and like, nope, we're going to do
Analysis
something else.
paralysis.
Analysis paralysis.
So I think some of the key takeaways, especially given your story, is not to overanalyze, because worrying is time that you can't get back. Like you just gave a great
Absolutely.
example of, time in the market is definitely going to grow your equity position for sure. Every moment spent overanalyzing and worrying is time you can't get back. No investment is without risk, but often the real loss comes from delaying. Sometimes you just need to jump in and get started.
Right. So that was definitely our biggest mistake, is just delaying that, because that could have been another property in our portfolio today. And I think the other thing is just not letting the small issues derail your long-term gains. So it's obviously important to stay in your comfort zone with budget and, cash available to make repairs and having adequate reserves. But, one little inspection thing that's $500 to $1,000, look what I missed out on over the course of that time. And I probably wouldn't have sold it all of those times. So, you might ask yourself, well, you weren't really going to get that equity, but I could have used that to buy another home. Right. It could have financed another down payment on another property. So, yeah, I think sometimes we just got to make sure that, is this worth like not moving forward with? And this also applies to home buyers, not just investors. I see all the time, again, in the inspection process, it is scary. And as an agent, and I've seen so many inspection reports, I've seen that they all are almost at least 60 pages long, right? That doesn't mean the house is falling apart. So just talking to your agent to see, like, if there is something that comes up. One, is it something the seller can fix? Can we ask for that? Two, is it something that does it need fixed today?
Right.
It might not
down the
need
road.
addressed for 10 more years, but the inspector is going to call it out. So don't miss out on this great house you have under contract over this inspection issue when you go get another one under contract, and it's likely to have the same or similar issues. There's no house that's going to have a perfect inspection.
Now, were you present for that inspection?
I was.
So you had the opportunity to ask the inspector questions at the time.
Yeah.
How serious do you think this is? Or, just gauging his
He seemed pretty casual about it. Like, again, and my agent was too. The whole flooded crawl space thing, I don't know. I was just like, no. I was just thinking mold and cleanup. And is this something that's going to happen all the time, every time it rains? But now I know there's
things to remedy
systems for
that.
crawl
Sump
spaces.
pumps.
There's things you could do to make that not an issue anymore. So just maintenance, and anything on a home is going to have maintenance. Crawl spaces are definitely one of those that often get overlooked. But again, once you know what to do with them, it's not that scary.
And that, folks, is why we're here sharing our stories and about the mistakes that we've made. And it's all about learning and improving.
Totally. And if you're just getting started with short-term rentals or long-term rentals, don't beat yourself up over the mistakes, because that's where you're going to learn.
So thanks for tuning in. That's a wrap for today's episode. If you found this helpful, please don't forget to subscribe.
And drop a comment below. Make us feel a little bit better if you've made any mistakes that you've learned from, because we're all in this together.
Let's hustle smarter
Together.
See you next time.